Mac, I believe. That'll be in large part the subject of my talk today, but I'll tell you a little bit about my stint at Microsoft, just so you have some sense of what sorts of things that I was doing. So if that has any alignment with what you have interest in, you can just kind of see some of the parallels and overlaps. Basically, I was a product manager in specifically Microsoft Teams calling. So right now we are on a Microsoft Teams call or meeting. And so many of the features that I worked on are actually present in the meeting right now. So if you look at the various names of people in the chat, you'll see there's external labels, you'll see there's unverified labels, and that labeling effort was one of the many things that I developed as a product manager, just as a way of establishing various levels of trust between yourself and the other users that you are on calls with. I also developed features that are accessibility oriented. So there's something called real-time text, which is a feature that enables deaf and hard of hearing individuals to communicate their thoughts in real time via text to users who can hear and speak. So it really runs the whole gamut, but I worked with software engineers, UX designers, other product managers, sales, marketing, everything in between as kind of the end-to-end vision setter, executor, strategist, roadmap planner, whatever you want to call it. So that's what I did as a product manager. But what I really want to focus on today, and once we get to the end of this, you're welcome to ask me any questions you have about either my time at Microsoft and various internships, how I've balanced things, whatever comes to mind. But to give you an idea of how I went about doing everything I just described, working at Microsoft while building up my own businesses, it really starts with one simple idea, and it's the 168-hour week concept. If you weren't aware, every week of your life has 168 hours. If you say that, 40 of those are allotted to corporate America work, standard 9 to 5, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that still leaves 128 hours outside of your 9 to 5 job. And then let's say you're getting the quote unquote right amount of sleep. You're sleeping 8 hours a night, 7 days a week, that's 56 hours. If you take the fact that you still have 128 hours minus those 56, you have 72 hours outside of sleeping and working that you can do whatever the heck you want to do with. Now, I fully acknowledge there could be commute time in there that takes up, an hour a day. There is eating time in there. Maybe it's 15 to 20 minutes a meal 3 times a day. That takes up an hour. But even if you subtract all of that, maybe that's another 2 or 3 hours of your day that's caught up in commuting and showering and eating. That's still going to leave you, I think we're down to like 60-ish hours of your week that you can do, again, whatever you need or want to do with. And so this is the first principle to understand if you want to build up your own business while working in corporate America, is accepting that the time is there. Everyone has the time. It's simply a matter of how you choose to allot it to the efforts and endeavors that you have in your life. I further acknowledge that if you are a parent, if you have a spouse, there is time requirements for that. You need to be investing time into your relationships, into your children. But even with all of that, there's still probably multiple tens of hours in your week that you can do everything and anything that you want with. And so that is the fundamental pillar to understand if you want to build up your own business and side hustle. So then it's a matter of determining, okay, how do you go about using that time to best benefit building up your own business and side hustle? First question is, do you have a business already? For most of us, the answer is no. You probably don't have a business yet. So ask yourself, what are the things in my life that I either care the most about or that I have the greatest level of expertise in? Because those are probably the two kind of areas of your life that you have the best chance possible of building your own business up that could actually benefit the lives of others. Many people kind of stop here because they don't feel they are an expert enough in something to be worthy of building up your own business. But the thing to realize is that all that it takes for a business to be successful at some baseline level is that you have one additional layer or level of knowledge than someone else, or that something that you've created can just bridge a tiny gap between an unmet need in their life, whether it's a product, a service, a software, or a coaching offering. I do fitness coaching, and I had these early doubts where I thought, there are these people out there who have 10, 20 years of coaching experience. Who am I to compete with them as a coach that only has, a couple of years of personal fitness experience? But what I later realized is that because I had already been working out for many, many years, I was a step ahead of everyone who had either never worked out or had only worked out a little bit. So apply that to your own life and whatever passion area you have. Because if you just have that small bit of additional knowledge or expertise or value add or perspective that someone else doesn't have, that is a monetizable business. For example, like in the business coaching world, just compare someone who has any level of business versus no level of business. As soon as you have some level of business knowledge, you can then help anyone who has never started a business, simply because you have the direct experience of having gone through it, and therefore you can share that perspective with others, help kind of calm their worries, their fears, that sort of thing. So that kind of gets you maybe to the first level of what might I be able to create a business around. And then once you have that high level thing, so like for me, that was fitness coaching, it was, okay, what does this service offering or this business actually look like? And so then you can kind of break it down into like, what are the elements of your product, your service, etc. For me, the elements were exercise, nutrition, and accountability. It was like, I needed to be able to coach someone through the exercise component of their fitness journey, through the nutrition component of their fitness journey, and then I needed to hold them accountable, offer space for community and 24/7 support. So those became my pillars. Again, I can only speak to my exact experience in this story that I'm telling you, but you can think of the same thing in your own life. Like if you're trying to start a travel company, you can think about what is the end-to-end user journey of someone going on a travel experience. There's everything from choosing a place to what is the itinerary to what is the hotel or Airbnb they stay in to what are the guides that they need on the ground, what are the activities that they can go on, the excursions, the adventures, the food, the experience. There's so many pillars. So just kind of brainstorm and ideate, like what are all those different things? Once you have the business foundation of like, okay, this is what it's going to look like, you might want to build out an MVP. Like what is the ground zero level of this business product offering, and acknowledge and embrace that it doesn't have to be the end all be all and what it finally ends up as. For me as a fitness coach, the way that my programs looked on day one, very different than the way they look today, 8 years later. I started my business in 7 years later. I started my business in 2018, 2025. Now, before I ever launched my own business, I worked for a fitness coaching company for 3 years to kind of like get my feet wet in that area and learn how things worked in that regard. But that's all to say that if I had allowed my pursuit of perfection to hold me back from ever launching my business in the first place, it never would have gotten to where it is today, where I've worked with over 800 clients one-on-one all over the world, remotely in 16 countries on 6 continents. Like that's a mind-blowing statistic for me even today, but it especially would have felt impossible 7 years ago. But you don't need to be thinking about like when or if you're going to get to that end point. All you need to think about is the present moment here now. What are you in control of? And what you're in control of is starting that business idea and executing upon it in the first place. So once you have that high-level business in mind, you've built out your MVP, then it's a matter of finding like your target customers, your first customers. So kind of think through like who would most need this. For me, as a then college student who was going through college while working on my fitness, the people who were most likely to be my customers were people who looked the most like me, people who were also going through college, and specifically people who likely needed to lose weight, build muscle, gain strength. So I started sharing my journey online, seeing who would naturally come to me. But then if there were people, say, commenting or engaging on social media posts that I would make about fitness coaching, I would reach out to them and ask if they were interested in hearing details about my coaching. You can apply the same thing to any business that you run. Just think through who is your ideal customer, and then seeing if they come to you. If they don't, go out to them. And also like friends and family are a great first place to start as like an initial warm market. And so then if we start to tie together these pieces with what I started with around this idea of like, how do you do all of this while working a corporate job? My advice is to break things down into like, what are the small daily habits that you can do to get you closer to your end vision for this business, building this business into something that actually makes money. So kind of break down what are the things you need to do on a given day or week, and then break that down further into daily habits. So for me, what that meant is when I was building my fitness business alongside working at Microsoft, every single day before going to bed, I would plan my social media post for the next day. So I was selecting or making or editing like a picture or a video that added value in some way or another in the world of fitness, whether it was entertainment, education, or inspiration. and I would write out a caption, I would edit my post, and then the next morning I would post it. So those are things that are obviously outside of work. It's right before bed, it's in the morning before starting work, and it can totally be fit within my schedule. Then when it came to other elements of my business, like making the programs for clients, I also would do that either after work or maybe on my lunch break, where I would send out my client questionnaires. I would intake those forms from clients once they'd filled them out. And then after the workday was done, the way that I separated my workday from the rest of my entrepreneurial life was I did a workout. So I would get through my 9 to 5, and then as soon as that was over, I wanted this kind of like mental shift where I didn't feel like I was just sitting at my computer all day, because it can get exhausting if you're working, 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9 without any breaks, because then you might be working, 12 plus hours sitting down for the vast majority of it. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to lose momentum, and then eventually you'll burn out. So it doesn't have to be a workout. Could be as simple as like going for a walk outside, just something to kind of break the pattern of like just sitting and doing work. So I would go do my workout, and then once I got home, I would eat dinner, and I would then begin my entrepreneurial work for that night. And so for me, that meant like I'm building my clients' programs. I'm responding to client check-ins where I'm providing coaching feedback for adjustments to make for the week ahead. And especially in the early days, I was planning the next round of programs that I was going to launch, because I should have mentioned the name of my fitness coaching program is called the Lion Shred. That was my base original program. And since then, I've also built out Lion Shred 2.0, Lion Shred 3.0 Superhero Strength, Lion Shred 3.0 Superhero Physique, then 4.0, then Women's Specialization Program, At Home 2.0, At Home. It's like all these different program offerings. So all of that was done in my nighttime hours. So that was super helpful for me to just think of like segmenting my day so that it didn't like blend together in a way that felt overwhelming. And then the final thing about how to like integrate all of this into your overall schedule and lifestyle is consider that even when working a corporate job that's 40 hours a week, and for some people maybe it's even 50 or 60 hours a week, you still have your weekends. As in, that is a ton of time that you can allot to your business if and when it makes sense to. So, maybe all day Saturday is a free day, maybe part of your Sunday is a free day. And so those are a lot of hours that you could theoretically put into your business if it matters enough to you to build up that side income to maybe eventually transition out of corporate America or have a dual income, that sort of thing. So those are a lot of the habits, principles that I applied. And then I would say the final thing to consider is that it isn't a bad thing to do both corporate America and your own business. And I mean this in a couple of ways. One is it can actually be a great advantage to you. Like, especially in like a service-oriented business like mine, a lot of my clients became people who I worked with. Maybe not directly, but someone who also worked at Microsoft. Because it's like if I was running my own business and working full-time, they knew that they had no excuses. Like there was no reason why they couldn't also get in great shape while working a corporate job, especially with the like proximity or affinity in terms of working lifestyle. Like we both worked at Microsoft, therefore we resonate with each other more, therefore they see a piece of themselves in me and my story, and so there's a deeper connection there. And then even if it isn't a service-oriented business, again, the people you work with become potential clients and customers because of that proximity that you have in terms of resonance and lifestyle, where like if you launch a product, service, software, anything like that, people are going to like know of you more within your workplace than just out there in the world. So they become a great initial target market. And then the final thing to consider is depending on what company you work at, it can actually become a platform in which to directly or indirectly market your business. So for example, at Microsoft, every October we have something called the Give campaign. And the Give campaign is a place or a time of the year where you're encouraged to pick charities and services that you would like to donate your time, energy, money to. And so what I would do is I would find fitness or health or wellness oriented charities and nonprofits that I could partner with, and I would give free coaching Q&As in exchange for people donating to these sorts of nonprofits. And in exchange, one, I was sharing fitness science knowledge with people at Microsoft, and two, those people came to know of my business, so maybe eventually they end up becoming clients and customers. And if not for working in corporate America, I never would have had that platform or opportunity in the first place. So you can also think through like, what are the things in your life that uniquely position you or give you opportunities to share your passion, business, service with those around you. So those are some of my key tips and tricks. I know we still have quite a lot of time left, but I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions open to the floor to y'all.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Patrick. This is definitely very insightful, and you put the steps very clear for us. Those 5 steps from again the time commitment at the beginning, and then to the how to get your word out and how to get your customers. Thank you so much for sharing this. So the floor is open for anyone who wants to ask questions. You can raise your hand or unmute and ask questions, or maybe if you want to write it in the chat, go ahead. I don't want to steal anyone's thoughts or questions. So go ahead, guys. I'm happy to support your questions here.
I have a question for you, Patrick.
Yeah.
What microphone setup do you have that it's not picking up the treadmill sounds?
So if I understand correctly, since I worked in Microsoft Teams, there's actually like some sort of an artificial intelligence that just filters that out. So I have no special system. It's just like if you were on a walking pad right now, you'd probably be as clear as I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay, cool. That's a good question.
Yeah, I guess one thing I want to mention along those lines is while I was working at Microsoft, and I should also clarify since we didn't explicitly say it, I was laid off from Microsoft recently. They laid off 15,000 people in 2 months. I was unfortunately one of those. I actually got laid off twice. I got laid off, rehired, laid off again. But that's all to say, while I was at Microsoft, there were occasional times where I was in meetings while at the gym. And I was worried about that because of how loud it was with the music and all the sounds. But like the first time I did that, I just asked someone on the call, like, hey, can you hear any background noise? And they're like, no, you sound perfectly clear. So that was a validation of like, okay, Teams is pretty good for that.
All right. Are you just using like AirPods microphone, something like that?
It's a different brand called Clear, C-L-E-E-R. I just like the way that they feel. They're over earbuds instead of in earbuds. So it's a little bit less hearing damage potential. And I just like the feeling of not having anything directly in my ear.
Okay.
Awesome. Good question. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jupiter. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll ask some questions, Patrick, if nobody else is asking some questions, or maybe again that will trigger some of other thoughts for the folks.
Oh, we got a raised hand. We got 2 raised hands.
Okay, then we'll take the raised hands first. So I see who's first. Let me see. Ivan, go ahead. You can unmute and ask your question, please.
Sure, yes, thank you, and thanks for doing this, Patrick, much appreciated, and Ahmed for organizing it. My question is, when you think back at your early days, as you're starting to build your business while working full-time, what's one strategy that you can think of that made the biggest difference in building, let's say, your audience, for example? What made the biggest difference once you found sort of where they at and kind of the approach to grow your audience?
Good question. So the first thing to embrace here is that we are in an era that you have the greatest potential for free marketing of any era of human history, and that is in the form of social media, because it's like anyone has the potential to create posts that reach people that you will never in your life actually meet. And that's an amazing luxury that we have that, again, you can do literally for free. And so the way in which you go about taking the most advantage of that opportunity is, I believe, to add value with every single post you make. And that term add value is, in a way, relative to whatever thing you're doing. So again, for me, in the world of fitness coaching, the 3 pillars of value add that I identified were entertainment, education, inspiration. So entertainment, the idea was not everyone is ready to be like in this like serious fitness mentality, but if I can weave in entertainment in a fitness way so that people don't feel like this is intimidating or unwelcoming, that alone can be like an unlock. So that's what I mean by value add in that way. And then education is more of the direct value add, where it's like if you can share free value about whatever the thing is. So like for me, sharing fitness tips, nutrition tips, exercise science principles that anyone can apply for free. Again, that's a free value add. And finally, inspiration. So it's like if I can share a testimonial of either my own life, how I transformed, of my clients' lives, how they transformed, that can become inspiration for them to see like, oh, if they did it, I can too. So maybe those aren't the pillars in your specific business area, but some sort of value add. And then if we take that a step further, there are specific principles of like how to go viral on social media. And a lot of it comes down to, oh, sorry, did it just like blast the audio? For some reason, I could hear myself in my ear.
It just came through someone else's microphone. You're good.
I see you well.
Okay, cool. So yeah, principles of virality. I just went to a full video summit for 3 days in Anaheim, California called VidCon. And so I kind of reaffirmed a lot of the things I'd already learned, but learned some new things. But some of the principles are like, for one, the first 3 seconds of a video matter more than any other time period of the entire video, because that's pretty much the time you have to convince the audience viewer to continue watching or not. So there has to be something so compelling in the first 3 seconds of a video you make that like they have to keep going. And it's almost this idea of creating a curiosity gap where something is introduced that is like that viewer has to know the answer, has to know more about it. Like there's this concept of there's this creator named Mark Rober, and he has a thumbnail that is just like, it says something like, can sharks really smell blood in the water, or something like that. And the thumbnail is just a picture of the shark, a man, and a single drop of blood. And it's like, it's just so immediately compelling where you're like, I have to know the answer. Like, can the shark really do that? That kind of a thing. Apply that to, your own content. And along those lines, I have, without explicitly saying it, been alluding to video content specifically far outperforms picture content. And I say this as someone who regularly uploads picture content still, but video content has a far better chance of captivating an audience member for a couple of reasons. One is they will potentially learn more than they would from just looking at a picture. Two, they're more likely to watch than they are to like read something that you've written. And three, by holding their attention for whatever duration of period of time it is, you're more likely to convert them into like a paying customer, or at least a warm customer who's more open to your product or service in the long term.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Makes a lot of sense. I am on LinkedIn and trying to move them from LinkedIn to newsletter and then other things. So thank you. Appreciate the tips.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. C, I'm not sure what's your name, so you can go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I'm also walking, so I'm gonna keep my video off. But and quick follow up on a question. But the main thing is, so what about like, I'm curious if you have in your corporate job a non-compete or some sort of conflict of interest disclosure, like, will these affect your ability to have a side hustle? Did you have that in Microsoft? Just curious. And I guess my follow-up is, what kind of treadmill do you use? And
what was the last one? What kind of what?
Treadmill do you use for your walking and work?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, there definitely are non-competes and moonlighting things within certain contracts. Like, especially at a company as big as Microsoft, it's very normal for your like agreement of employment to say that like you're not going to work for a competing company or something that directly competes with the Microsoft service offering. And if there's like a gray area where you're not sure, that's the sort of thing where I believe you have to take it to either like HR or legal of your company to get sign off to say like, okay, you're okay or you're not okay to do whatever it is that you're wanting. In my case, Microsoft is not a fitness coach and has not and probably never will do fitness coaching. Therefore, no conflict of interest, no concerns there. And then for your second question about the walking pad, I use a brand called Lichico, Lichico. And if you DM me on LinkedIn, I can send you a link to the exact one that I get because they do have a lot of them. I will also say, shameless plug, like I am partnered with Lichico, but it is not fully biased because I've literally had like 5 or 6 walking pads over time. I currently have 3 different ones. I'm looking at one over there. I have one in a different room and I have this one. This is the best one by far.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good insights. I think we're doing free marketing for this company now, Patrick. Right?
That's right.
Amazing. Okay, so I don't see any other hand raised. Okay, maybe there is someone. Let me just see here. Okay. Yeah, so I think my question to you, Patrick, is how do you really focus? If you're really in this two switches of your 9 to 5 and then your side hustle, this is definitely a lot for someone to focus. What are your strategies to focus on both sides so that you don't really feel like you're not really in a good performer in both sides?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the concept here is known as task switching. And so it's the idea that you can potentially lose focus if you have to switch tasks too frequently. So my advice is to really, really time block such that like you have a block of time where you're working on one thing, a block of time where you're working on the other thing. And I don't just mean like, okay, from 9 to 5, you're doing corporate, and then after that, you're doing other stuff. I mean, like even within that window, have very dedicated periods of time to very specific tasks. So one of the things that I did at Microsoft that I found to be immensely beneficial was I did what was called a 1-hour power hour. And this was a self-rule that I gave myself where for one dedicated hour of the day, I couldn't use my phone at all while doing Microsoft work. Because it's the idea that, like especially me working remotely, it's very easy to be, doing a task, check your phone, respond to a text, go back to work. And that sort of task switching alone can make you lose focus. So for at least that 1 hour of the day, I was just hyper focused in. And it's important in this concept to have your phone out of your visual vicinity. So like that within any 180 degrees of looking forward, you can't see your phone. So I would physically put it behind me so it was out of sight, out of mind. And then for that hour, I was doing all non-call and meeting tasks. Of course, there are going to be times a day where you have to be in calls and meetings. So this was a specific hour where I'm doing strategy work, I'm doing emails, I'm doing Teams messages, kind of like the admin tasks of daily life. That way, in that 1 hour, I made sure that all that was completed, knocked out. It feels super productive. It feels good to get that stuff out of the way. And then I would go about the rest of my day. So time blocking like that can be super effective. And I've done that in both my corporate job and in my own business. But transparently, my own business works on my phone quite often because I'm doing social media related tasks. So it doesn't make as much sense to do it that way. So that's one thing. And then the other is just to really align with yourself on like, what is your habit schedule, and follow that as closely as possible every single day in the same order for the same amount of time. So like, what are the tasks you're going to do at work? Can you do them in approximately the same order, devote the same amount of time to them each day, and apply the same to your own business? So like my tasks that I was mentioning before for my own business is like planning the social media post the night before, posting it the morning after, doing client check-ins, working on clients' programs, whatever those tasks are for you, do them in the same way as possible, in the same place, every day, same amount of time. It literally develops like neurological networks in your brain around the execution of that task to the point where it gets to a point of automation.
Amazing, good point. Definitely lots of wisdom here. And again, I'll keep going since I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat or hand raised. So I assume again, doing business, you have to learn so many things, and you have to try to be up to date in what's happening in the world. Again, social media is one aspect of it. Legal, HR, finance, sales, marketing. How do you learn all those things in parallel? Again, I know that since you're a product manager, you've already been in this world already of the MVP and how to build small products that can scale. But what's your advice to folks who are thinking now to do this and they are overwhelmed by the amount of learning that they have to do to start their own business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the thing to think about here is that you do not need to know everything that Ahmed just said from day one. Yes, you will likely have to learn those things eventually, but especially when starting your first business, my advice is to learn things as they come, as needed, as opposed to proactively learn everything and then see how it works. It's going to be far easier to learn these things through real-time execution and necessity than it is to like, quote unquote, learn out of a textbook or learn from a blog. So like, for example, I didn't have an LLC attached to my business for the first like 2 years, I think it was. So from 2018 to January of 2020, I was just doing my business. Like, I didn't know any better. I was just collecting clients' payments. I was working on clients' workout programs, nutrition plans. And then I found out that it's probably good to have an LLC. It's probably good to like have that sort of protection so that if you got sued or something, that it's not your assets that are on the line, it's only your business's. So granted, that's a great kind of safety net and seatbelt to have on yourself as a business owner. But at the same time, I know plenty of business owners who were in the same boat where it's like they just didn't know any better. And until you learn that, like, okay, you should probably have this, it's not like end of the world to not have it. So that's one thing. And then when it comes to like HR of like people management, not like literally managing a person like in the corporate world, but like how do you deal with people? That's something that, again, you kind of learn in real time through your interactions with potential clients and customers. Like, to me, you're going to get a lot more value out of that than, again, reading a blog that says, like, here's how you should deal with people type thing.
Amazing. Great insights. I think my next question would be, again, about partnerships. We definitely had to do a lot of partnerships so that you can get your word out. Do you have a strategy about this? What is the right way of reaching out to people so that you don't really waste time of yourself or their time as well? So what's your insights or wisdom here?
Just to clarify on the question, when you say partnerships, are you talking about like a business that I partner with, or are you talking about like an individual who joins my program, or what do you mean?
Like, again, businesses that you're helping them and helping yourself too, like referrals or affiliates or something like that. Again, there is definitely so many things under this belt, but whatever works for you, if you want to share some wisdom of it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll address referrals first, because I think that especially when you're starting out as a business owner, referrals are one of your easiest ways to actually build your business, assuming that you have a good product or service available. Because it's a lot easier for someone who is a devoted user of a product or service to tell their friends and family about whatever it is that you do than it is for you as a business owner to create a piece of content that reaches people who've never heard of your program before. So what I did within my business is I had a referral system wherein anytime someone referred a friend or family member who signed up for my program, they would get either $100 cash or $75 off their next fitness program with me. So it just gave them like a small monetary incentive that said, like, hey, I really appreciate you telling people about your experiences with the program, and so I'm going to reward you for it. On the other side of things, partnerships with businesses, this kind of gets into another arm of my business that I haven't talked much about. But so my custom one-on-one program that I've been telling you about, that's called the Lion Shred. I also have Lion Media, which is my content arm of my business, wherein I specialize in creating high ROI social media advertisements for brands in the fitness and fitness technology spaces. And so that is pulling from my passion for public speaking, for fitness science, for content creation, all that sort of thing. I even have a background in acting, so I'm like very comfortable on camera. I'm literally projecting this light from a box light on my face right now because I use this for auditions. So just to give you a sense of like, this is stuff that I love. So in terms of the partnerships that I land there as a content creator, that started out almost exclusively with me pitching myself to brands. So I would kind of develop a pitch of like, what is my unique positioning and my value add as a content creator that I can offer to these brands and businesses, and articulate that as quickly and succinctly as possible. So if you're trying to do some sort of brand outreach or partnerships, short and sweet and to the point is the key for the initial reach out. So we're talking like no more than 1 to 2 paragraphs that just very briefly says like who you are, what your unique positioning and value add is, and what your proposal is. So for me, I would say something like, hi, my name is Patrick Lyons. I'm an online fitness coach who's worked with over 800 clients all over the country. I specialize in creating high ROI social media advertisements based on fitness science and research. I'd love to partner with you incorporating this knowledge. Something like that, where they just know immediately exactly who I am, what I can offer, and then they can decide if they want to learn more. So I started out with a lot of those sorts of pitches. And now I've partnered with well over 150 different companies over time to create content for them. And so all that content exists out there in the world. A lot of it, paid media ad usage rights, are incorporated, which means that these brands are putting ad spend behind the videos that I have created. So they've literally reached tens of millions of people, including other brands. So brands will now reach out to me and say like, hey, I saw what you did for such and such brand. I'd love to have you do the same for me. But that's the sort of thing that just comes with time. You can't expect that from day one. That's why you start with, you were the one pitching yourself. And then it's just the law of large numbers. Like if you pitch yourself to 100 brands, maybe 2 get back to you. But guess what? Those 2 could change your life.
Amazing. So my next question is, you have definitely a lot of followers on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm sure that didn't come overnight. That took some time for you to grow. What's your secret sauce or recipe to do this, and what really ticked? What I understand is that when you reach a certain level, then it grows automatically after that virally. So again, I'll let you share your wisdom here because you're the expert for sure.
Yeah, so my number one piece of advice for social media growth is focus on quantity over quality first, then focus on quality. And let me give disclaimers of what I mean there. I'm not just saying put out content for the sake of putting out content, because that will just not do well. But a lot of times we allow our own pursuit of perfection to get in the way of releasing content at all. We feel like it has to be a perfect video, it has to be the perfect thing before we ever put it out into the world. And that'd be great to get to the point where things are perfect, but there's nothing wrong with having an MVP even of content. So if you can just put out as much content as possible that you do still have confidence in that, okay, this is valuable in some way, even if it's not the most high quality, highly produced, perfect product, it's still valuable to someone. And doing that often and frequently and consistently at the beginning is more important than having one perfect video. In the long term, I think one perfect video actually is better than the quantity, because one perfect video, quote unquote perfect, could go mega viral, reach 10 million people, which is easier to do than reaching 10,000 people every single time, because you're going to have hits and misses. And it's easier to have a really big hit than 100 medium hits. That's kind of the concept for the long term. But in the short term, again, I focus on quantity, but still value add. And the reason for doing this is because, let's say you release 100 videos. Chances are 1 or 2 or 3 of those is going to be an outlier. It's going to outperform the other 97. And then you can look at those outliers and say, what's different about those? And then double down on that and do it over and over and over again. So one example I have is back when I was in college, I didn't know for sure what I wanted my content to be. So you can go back on my YouTube channel and see that my original viral videos were prank videos. Not harmful or hurtful pranks, but just silly, goofy things where I'm wearing a superhero costume and I'm running around a classroom or I'm running around a library, which I realize is such an absurd thing to say, given what I do now is corporate stuff and fitness stuff. But that's what I started with, was superhero stuff. And when I say I started with it, I don't mean that was my first video. I mean, it was my first viral video. So as soon as I had a viral video, I just looked at okay, what's different about this? The things that were different were it incorporated superheroes, and it's a social experiment or prank. And so I doubled down on that, and I released 10 or 20 that were in that regard, and a bunch of them went viral because I identified what the pattern breaker was, and then I just kept doing that thing. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to do that thing forever, but it is very in your favor to take advantage of it for a short period of time, use it to build your audience, and then go from there with what you want.
Amazing. Again, definitely lots to digest here and lots to practice too. You definitely have to practice a lot and try and fail multiple times until you really reach that viral. What was the topic of your first viral videos, or maybe, I don't know, do you use mostly viral is video, or is it just a post on LinkedIn? What did it really work at the beginning?
Yeah, good question. So that's another very important point, is that the type of content that performs well on each platform is definitely different. So I just mentioned these superhero prank videos that went viral on YouTube. Those are probably not going to go viral on LinkedIn. It's just not the right place for it. What I have found does really, really well on LinkedIn is, one, Microsoft content, which obviously doesn't apply to everyone. But for me, as a Microsoft employee, anytime I could talk about Microsoft, especially when I could physically show the word Microsoft in my post, whether with like the logo on like a piece of paper or a shirt or something behind me, that's when it would really perform well. But whether it was Microsoft content or not, there's this concept that I heard many years ago called like LinkedIn poetry. And I recently heard, I think maybe a better term for it is create LinkedIn CVS receipts. I don't know if you guys know about the concept of a CVS receipt, but it's the one that's just like really, really long. It's like it just has a million line items on it to where like you could order one thing at the CVS store, but your receipt will still take up like 3 feet of space. So that is the concept that I apply to my LinkedIn captions, where you don't want to have really long paragraphs or one massive block of text or one really short line. Instead, have a lot of little lines. So like have a really captivating hook where in like 20 words or less, you're capturing some really profound idea or like an emotional thing. So like for me, when I talked about my layoff, I said like, 6 years as a product manager, laid off twice, here's where I am now. Or I don't know exactly what I said, but that kind of a concept, but just really short and sweet to the point. You capture that in one line. And then every idea thereafter is like 1 or 2 sentences max. And then you just go on to the next paragraph. So if you look through any of my content, you'll see it's very scrollable because it's just so long. And that seems to do really well.
Okay. Interesting. I never thought about this, and I thought it should be smaller and to the point, or quick read of 20 seconds or less. Again, but thank you for enlightening me. Okay,
yep.
Maybe since you're a fitness coach, maybe let's use this time now to get what is the most thing that folks in tech specifically need from a fitness coach.
Yeah, the number one thing is the thing I'm doing right now. I really mean that. Like going for walks regularly throughout your day is one of the most important things you can do to combat the sedentary lifestyle of a desk job. Because the average American only gets around 4,000 to 5,000 steps per day. And that's in large part because so much of our lives are sedentary, not just at work, but then, after work, most people are probably watching TV or Netflix or just doing something on their phone, sitting down. And that sort of a thing just kind of gives into the lethargy and sedentariness of your lifestyle to perpetuate the problem that has arisen in the first place. And so if you can find ways to incorporate walks throughout your day, you can directly combat the negative effects incurred from sitting down for so long. The ideal world would be not being in a job where you have to be sitting down, which I do believe most of us don't have that. And what I mean is like you could literally be doing this where it's like you're simultaneously walking and in a meeting. Doesn't apply to all cases, like if I was in a meeting with execs or a leadership presentation, I'm probably going to be sitting down at my desk. Yeah. But like for situations and circumstances where you realistically can be walking while doing the thing, I recommend doing that. There's been direct research showing additional longevity and cardiovascular health benefits for all the way up to about 15,000 steps per day. Doesn't mean that you have to get exactly that many to like be healthy. You can be plenty healthy from 8 or 10,000 steps per day, but there are additional benefits incrementally to small degrees from even more. So that'd be my number one thing. And then the number two thing I would say is making it so that all of your meals are comprised primarily of whole foods. I don't mean the store called Whole Foods, but like whole plant foods and whole lean protein sources. So if you look at a plate, you want somewhere between like 2/3 and 3/4 of it to be filled with most likely high fiber fruits and vegetables. High fiber vegetable examples would be like cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, green beans, asparagus. Basically think about the things that take up a lot of space, have a lot of water content, but don't have that many calories. You could literally have like a pound of broccoli or cauliflower, and it's only going to run you like 100, 150 calories. By contrast, if you have a pound of, really fatty beef, that's going to run you like 700, 800 calories. So it's just a very different amount of calories in it. So comprise a majority of your plate with high fiber fruits and vegetables, and then the rest of your plate with like a lean protein source, whether that's chicken or turkey or fish or shrimp, or if you're going with plant-based, we're talking about things like lentils, tofu, seitan, edamame, just things like that that are majority comprised of protein as opposed to a lot of fat and a little bit of protein like a red meat.
Amazing. tons of wisdom. And I'm sorry if I'm using you a lot today. We're
That's
trying
okay.
to get as much wisdom as we can from this great call. I think again, maybe one of the topics, because you recently went through layoffs, and this has now been a norm, unfortunately, in the tech world, and some folks are really, really scared of those layoffs, and they sometimes get paralyzed almost from the thoughts of being laid off. I know you've been in this twice with Microsoft itself, and you definitely developed some maybe stamina or some ways to pass that kind of denial or kind of emotions that comes with the layoff. What would you advise people who are still in the risk maybe of getting a layoff, or people who already got a layoff?
Yeah, great question, and very timely. So the number one piece of advice I have is genuinely to have your own source of income outside of corporate America or startup life or whatever job you're in. That's why I made this entire talk about that, because it's the easiest way to make yourself resilient to a layoff. No one is layoff proof. Like literally, Satya Nadella, he's the CEO of Microsoft. Theoretically, the board could vote him out. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. And so it's like you have to have some sort of a safety net or something to fall back on that makes it so that you being stripped of your employment title doesn't also strip you of like financial security. I firmly believe that is just like a necessity in today's age where like you just don't know when a layoff is going to happen. So starting today, building a business, getting it to the point where you at least have some sort of small income or large income on the side can be immensely beneficial. Second thing to embrace is that the vast majority of layoffs are emotionless business restructuring decisions. Basically meaning that like it doesn't have anything to do with your worth or value add, even though it will feel like your value is being attacked through a layoff. It's just not. It's like my manager didn't even know I was being laid off from Microsoft until I told her. It was like a very tops down thing. It was just like, yep, we're getting rid of 15,000 people. There was probably some element of like AI that helped make that decision, that because it's like the odds of them being able to actually specifically choose each of the 15,000 people is just very low. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. It's just my speculation, but that's all to say it is not a reflection of your worth. And so once you embrace that, it's then a little bit easier to process it and get through it, because it's no longer like I'm not good enough to ever work at a company again. It's more so just like, okay, this business decided they were moving in a different direction and needed fewer people. Therefore, I'm going to take my talents elsewhere. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy to get a new job, but don't allow it to make you feel any less worthy of the job that you already had, because you're just as worthy, if not more worthy, because of the experiences and the skill sets that you've built where you came from.
Amazing. Definitely. Again, lots to digest and absorb, and I hope everybody is getting this wisdom live with us here on LinkedIn too. So Patrick, maybe one other angle of the question is product management. Product management is not an easy role. You definitely have to deal with lots of communication, lots of stakeholders, lots of bugs and challenges that may not be in your comfort zone. And how did you again progress in your career, and what is the recipe that you developed in order to avoid feeling that you're not good enough or you're not ready for those challenges? Because again, I think those could help most of the IT professionals today who are really trying to progress in a different field.
Yeah. So something to realize both in product management and in honestly the majority of careers out there is that so much of what you do is just clear communication, especially as a product manager though, wherein the way in which you are successful as a product manager is rallying stakeholders together, cross collaborating with all the different folks that you work with, whether that's other product managers, whether it's software developers, product designers, marketing, sales, finance, all that sort of thing. And it's important that you are clear in your communication to express what you need, but also to learn what they need. Because what you want is to meet on common ground of like, how can we help each other? And again, that applies to more than just being a product manager, but especially as a product manager. And then as a matter of understanding deeply what other people need, because oftentimes you're dealing with conflicting priorities and resource allocation, wherein if other engineers you work with only have 40 hours a week, which they do, only have 40 hours a week, they only have so many hours with which to allot to the various projects they're working on. And so if you can understand what their priorities are, you can get a better sense of like, what are the odds that my project can fit within that? And how can I get it fit within that? And do I need to escalate to convey the importance of this in terms of business prioritization and return on investment, ROI? Or is this like okay, this isn't a fight worth fighting right now, but maybe we table it for another quarter or two? So clear communication, understanding priorities on your end, understanding the business side of like what is the value of what you're doing, as well as what do the other people need.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Jupiter, I see your hand raised. Go ahead if you want to unmute.
I'm curious, Patrick, what got you into project management? Did you go to school for that, or?
Yeah, good question. So I I went to school for mechanical engineering. So my degree is definitely not in product management, nor is it in software. But while getting an engineering degree, I also got certificates in both business and computer science. So I had like a little bit of my foot in the door for like the business side and for development of software, but didn't have any direct experience in it, which is why my first full-time job at Microsoft was as a mechanical sourcing engineer, much more in line with what I went to school for. The thing that got me into product management was a couple of things. The most notable of which is that my previous role as a mechanical sourcing engineer was remote during COVID, because everything was remote during COVID. But as soon as COVID was deemed like over or able to be mitigated, that sort of thing, everyone in that side of Microsoft was forced to go back to Seattle in person, or at least hybrid. I had moved back to Texas. I found that I was much happier, healthier, and more fulfilled in Texas, and therefore I wasn't willing to move back to Seattle. So once that kind of directive came out that there was a specific date by which we needed to be back in the office, I looked for new roles internally that were remote, found that product management roles were pretty much all remote. And so I just reached out to like a dozen different hiring managers internally at Microsoft, did informational interviews with a bunch of them, did an interview with 2 of them, did the full interview loop with 1 of them. That one is the one that I ended up working on, which was in Microsoft Teams calling. And so that's the way in which I was kind of forced to go that direction, but ultimately found more passion for my corporate job in product management than I ever had as a mechanical sourcing engineer. And that's because product management is in large part entrepreneurship. It's like you're a mini CEO within corporate America, where you own the vision of a product from end to end. So in that way, my own business experience actually immensely helped in that role and in conveying my ability to take on the role.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Patrick. I guess we're almost on time, so it's time for the group selfie. If everyone wants to join this on camera, I'll just stop the spotlighting for Patrick, and everyone who wants to be a celebrity for this call, you can join now. Let me just make this a gallery together mood. Yeah, cool. So when you're ready, I'll say 1, 2, 3 and smile. So just give me a second here. I'm just juggling between 2 different laptops to do the streaming. So when you're ready, I'll say 1, 2, 3 and smile. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today, and thank you so much, Patrick. This was amazing. We learned so much from you, and we'll be glad to have you again with us. So if your time allow and you can come back to this community, we'll be happy to have you regularly. Do you have any platform that you go to regularly for consultation, or maybe I don't know if your business have some free consultation for those who are either in Texas, Austin, or maybe remotely? I don't know if you want to share some of those insights, please.
Yeah, so the best place for all of y'all to connect with me is probably going to be LinkedIn, but I have a presence on pretty much every social media. So especially if you're wanting to know more and learn more and see more of the fitness side. Instagram is probably the best way to reach me, but otherwise LinkedIn is definitely a great place for all things business consultation, that sort of thing.
Amazing. Again, thank you so much, Patrick. This was amazing. We learned a lot from you today, and we loved the talk. We loved the energy. We loved the analysis and the way you lay down complex ideas to us. So thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll be looking forward to having you again in our next sessions. Any final words, Patrick, before we end up here?
No, just thank y'all for the time, and hopefully you learned something. Feel free to hit me up anytime.
Thank you so much. Okay, take your
Thank
time
you.
and enjoy your day, and we'll see you again. Take care. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.